Today, Moscow and St. Petersburg remain in digital darkness. The Kremlin is unusually quiet, but across Russia, pressure is spreading because the strikes are no longer limited to the battlefield. They are reaching missile factories, fuel routes, and military logistics hubs deep inside Russian territory. These attacks are not random, they are hitting the system that keeps the war alive. For years, Russia believed its rear territory was secure. The war was supposed to stay far away from the Russian heartland. But today, that assumption is breaking down. The rear is no longer safe, and something even more important is beginning to shake: the political foundation of the regime led by Vladimir Putin. Inside Moscow, the networks that once protected the Kremlin appear to be shrinking. The inner circle around Putin is becoming more nervous, because when a government starts cutting communications in its own capital, it usually means one thing. It is afraid, and at the same time, tension is appearing inside Russia's elite. One longtime ally of Putin is suddenly losing influence. That figure is Sergei Shoigu. For years, Shoigu was considered one of Putin's most trusted partners. Many believed his position was secure, but now several people connected to his network are reportedly facing arrests or house arrest. In authoritarian systems, that often signals an internal power struggle. Other factions inside the Kremlin may be trying to gain control of the defense sector and military budgets connected to the war. In simple terms, the competition for power inside Moscow could be intensifying. Meanwhile, the Russian government says the internet shutdowns have a clear purpose. Officials claim the outages are meant to stop drone attacks. At first glance, that explanation sounds reasonable. If drones rely on communication signals, limiting digital networks might make them harder to operate. But there's a problem. Drone strikes inside Russia have been happening for months. Recently, Ukrainian operations reportedly hit targets across several Russian regions, including airfields, oil infrastructure, ports, and missile facilities. One strike even hit a factory producing more than 1,200 components used in missiles and drones. Facilities like that are extremely difficult to replace during wartime, and these are high-value targets. Yet despite these attacks, Russia is not dramatically strengthening defenses in many areas. Instead, authorities are focusing heavily on information control. In many regions, the internet hasn't been fully shut down. Instead, authorities are introducing a whitelist system. That means citizens can only access a small list of approved websites while everything else is blocked. But if the goal is stopping drones, why restrict which websites people can visit? That suggests the shutdowns may not actually be about drones. They may be about controlling what people see and say online. A recent drone incident raised even more questions. Russian officials claim they intercepted 65 drones, with 31 reportedly heading toward Moscow. But something didn't add up. In previous attacks across Russia, people posted videos, alarms sounded, and eyewitness reports appeared online. This time, there were no alarms, no videos, and almost no public evidence, only official statements. Now consider this. Moscow is a city of more than 14 million people. If dozens of drones were approaching the capital, how did almost nobody notice? If the defense systems worked perfectly, then why shut down internet access for days? The explanation begins to look less like security and more like control. Authoritarian governments often tighten information control during periods of uncertainty. By limiting communication, they reduce the risk of protests and prevent people from organizing. But the economic cost of these shutdowns is significant. Reports suggest the disruptions could be costing millions of dollars per day. At the same time, reports from several regions say teachers have not received their salaries. So while money is spent enforcing digital blackouts, some basic public payments appear to be delayed. Another unusual detail has also appeared. Recently, Putin himself has been seen much less frequently. Normally, Russian government channels regularly show updates of the president's meetings and activities. But lately, many announcements have come instead from Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov. That has raised new questions. Where is Putin, and why has he become less visible during a moment of rising pressure? History shows that leaders who stay in power for decades often develop strong confidence, sometimes even arrogance, but sometimes reality forces a wake-up call. One example is Muammar Gaddafi, who eventually realized other authoritarian leaders were being overthrown and tried to adjust his policies to avoid the same fate. Today, Putin may be looking at similar warning signs. For more than 26 years, his system survived by maintaining stability. But historically, governments face their greatest danger when economic stress, political rivalry, and military pressure appear at the same time. Right now, Russia may be experiencing all three. Sanctions are squeezing oil revenues, industries are struggling, and inside the Kremlin, factions appear to be competing for influence. All of these pressures trace back to one crucial decision, the decision to invade Ukraine. And today, the consequences of that decision are reaching far beyond the battlefield. Inside Russia itself, the system that once looked stable is now facing growing uncertainty. Because when a government begins cutting communications, controlling information, and tightening surveillance over its own capital, it usually means the leadership fears something more powerful than outside enemies. It fears its own people waking up. Thanks for watching. This is Global Decode 13, where we break down global power, strategy, and geopolitics in simple terms. No noise, no hype, just clear understanding. If you want to see what's really happening beneath the headlines, make sure you're here for the next decode. I'll see you in the next one.